Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our grammar clinic. So we've been away for a couple of weeks, but now we are back. We're back on campus and we are ready to go. We're going to get back in the game looking at different parts of grammar. Okay, so we have so much to cover today. We're going to be very busy bees. So let's get started and see what is on the agenda. So this is the 8th session of the grammar clinics. And if you do ever want to join us, it is every Monday, same time, same place. And yeah, all right. So let's have a look at what we've got on the agenda for today. So as you can see here, we're looking at parts of speech today. So if you don't know what that means, the next slide that we look at here will detail it for you. So parts of speech are those classes of words that we use in the English language that have different functions. Okay, so you can see here maybe the more common ones that we know, nouns, verbs, adjectives, but we're also going to have a look at some of the more rarer ones here, like adverbs, interjections, conjunctions, etc. So every sentence needs at least a noun or a pronoun plus a verb, but now we are at our degree level courses, we need to be writing more complexly. So this is why we need to use all of these if we can in order to make our language more sophisticated. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is nouns. So nouns as a class of word are words which describe, oh, sorry, words which refer to a person, place, thing, or idea. Okay, so if we have a look at this example here, we've got the sentence, the dog barked loudly. In this sentence, the word dog is a noun because it talks about a thing. Okay, all right. So have a little think then about what other words, what other nouns we can think of. Okay, so those are the nouns. So let's have a look at the different types of nouns. Okay, so nouns can refer to people. Okay, so they can either be singular, as in, person, or they can be plural, as in people. Okay, so we've got the examples here of girl, boy, teacher, doctor. They are all types of people nouns. The next one we have are place nouns. Okay, so these are words which refer to locations. So these can be singular or plural as well. So we've got park or parks, school or schools, beach or beaches, or city or cities. Okay, so there are lots of other examples that we can think of when it comes to place nouns. But nouns can also replace the things. So they can refer to things, objects, items. Okay. So just like people and places, they can be either singular or they can be plural. Okay. So here we got the examples of bull, book, chair, and toy. Okay. So they are all examples of thing nouns. Okay. So let's think about how we can identify nouns in a sentence then.
By the bell, I think.
Okay.
That was just
So the noun is always the who or the what in a sentence.
I have no idea what that was from.
So if we say the cat is sleeping, then we have to think about who is sleeping. And in that situation, it is the cat. So that is how we know that the cat is the noun in the sentence. Okay, so as we've already mentioned, nouns can either be singular or plural. Okay, so if they are singular, they refer to one person or place or thing. Or if they are plural, they can refer to more than one person, place, or thing. Okay. All right. So if it is singular, it would be dog, car, or hat. Or if it is plural, it would be dogs, cars, or hats. So if it is a regular noun, then it would have s at the end. But there are also the irregular ones, like child, children, mice, mouse, mice, things like that. Okay. Okay. So then we've got another subset of nouns, which are proper nouns. Okay. So proper nouns are when we're talking about the specific names of people's places or things. So if it is an actual specific name, it is a proper noun and it would begin with a capital letter. Okay, so like we can see in the examples, we've got Sarah with a capital. London is the specific name of a city, so it gets a capital letter. And the other examples there. Okay, all right. So any kind of personal name, so for like me, Kieran, that is a capital letter. Okay, Elizabeth School of London, this is a name of a specific institution, so it gets a capital letter as well. Okay, so the distinction then between proper nouns and other nouns, common nouns, shall we say, common nouns are names for general things, whereas proper nouns are for specific things. So if it is general, it has a lowercase letter, but if it is a proper noun, if it is specific, it has a capital letter and uppercase. Okay. So those are nouns, which we've talked about. Now let's move on to pronouns. So pronouns are very similar to nouns. You can even imagine them as a type of noun themselves, but a pronoun is what replaces a noun. Okay. So maybe that needs a bit more explanation. So let's look at the example to help us. Okay, so we've got the sentence, she loves to read. Okay, so here we've got the word she. So she here is a pronoun. Okay, so it's not a noun like dog or table or cat or things like that, but it has a similar function. Okay, it refers to the person in the sentence. Okay, all right, but you're not using a specific person's name. You're using another word in order to refer to that person. Okay. So in that situation, she is a pronoun. Okay. All right. So you can think of all of those other ones like he, him. All right. It, them, the, yeah. Okay. All right. So if you're using one of those words, then it is a pronoun, but it has exactly the same function as a noun. Okay. So next we've got adjectives. Okay, so adjectives are what modify a noun or a pronoun. So it's also helpful to think of adjectives as describing a noun. Okay, so we've got the example sentence, the blue sky is beautiful. Okay, all right. So we've got sky, sky is the noun, but we're describing the sky. So blue would be an adjective. Also, interestingly, beautiful is an adjective because the sky is blue and the sky is beautiful. They are descriptions of the sky, so they are adjectives. Okay, so let's have a look at the different types of adjectives that we have. Okay, so we got the example sentence here, the big red apple. Okay, so big and red describe the apple, so they are both adjectives. Okay, and generally they provide information about the noun or the pronoun. For example, its size, its color, shape, or its state of being. Okay, so let's look at some of those specific types then. Okay, so we've got the descriptive adjectives. Okay, so these are the ones that describe the qualities or the characteristics. Okay, so we've got the examples here, tall, beautiful, delicious. Okay, the building is tall.
I mean,
the food is beautiful, or, the food is delicious as well. Okay, so they describe what the noun is. Okay, we also have demonstrative adjectives. Okay, so these are adjectives which point out a specific noun, okay, and help to place it in space or in time. Okay, so the examples that we've got here are this, that, these, and those. Okay, all right. So you're talking about this pen rather than that pen over there, these pens rather than those pens over there. So this helps us to know about the actual space, its location in space. Okay. Okay. So the next ones we've got are quantitative adjectives. And as you can guess from the name, these talk about the quantity or the amount of the nouns which we are talking about. So the examples we've got here are many, few, and several, and they describe the numerical value or the comparative information of the adjective. Oh, sorry, of the nouns, forgive me. Okay, so our fourth type that we're looking at here are the possessive adjectives. Okay, so these possessive adjectives describe the ownership of the nouns. Okay,
I was just stopped up for so many pages.
so these adjectives describe who owns or who possesses the nouns that we're talking about in the sentence. Okay, so you can see here we've got the examples of my, your, his, her, it, our, and their. Okay, so if we want to know whose dog it is, for example, we could say it is my dog, it is her dog. Okay, so these are possessive adjectives because they tell us who owns that thing or person.
My background, chemistry is my background. They would want me to teach them science.
Okay, so
which I wouldn't mind to be honest, because I like very much, and I like them.
all right.
In fact, I'm not qualified to do that necessarily as a point, but it's anyway. Was there anything you wanted to run?
So the fifth type of adjective we're going to have a look at now is interrogative adjectives. Okay, so interrogative adjectives are the ones which describe someone asking questions about nouns. Okay, so it could be which person, what time, whose bag is this. Okay, so those adjectives are really the kind of question words that we have here. Okay, now on to the sixth type. We've got the indefinite adjectives. Okay, so these are talking about non-specific nouns, and we don't know how many or anything like that. We're just trying to talk about them in general. So we're talking about some, any, all, each, and every. Okay, so somebody, anybody, everyone. Okay, all right. So those are our 6 different types of adjectives. Now, let's finally just think about the function. Okay, so the adjectives can function in various ways. Okay, so they can come before the noun. Okay, so like you can see here, the blue sky, or they can come afterwards, as in the sky is blue, if you have a verb to help you out. Okay, but also adjectives can work as a noun in a sentence. Okay, the poor deserve our help. Okay? So generally poor is an adjective. Okay, he is a poor person, for example. But in some very special situations, they can be a noun as well. Okay, so those were our adjectives. Now let's move on to verbs. Okay, so you may have learned about these at school. So verbs are the actions or the state in a sentence. They describe what people do or what people are. Okay, so in this example sentence, she ran to the store. Ran is the verb because that is the action. Okay.
Why gotcha.
Okay, so as we've just mentioned then, verbs are words that express any actions or events or states of being. So our examples can be run, jump, think, exist. Okay. All right, so it may seem like they're quite different. Run is an action, whereas think is something that doesn't really have an action to it. But run and jump are more actions, whereas think and exist are more state.
They obviously tried looking on the ESL website for a disability services email.
Okay, so our action verbs can be those verbs which express physical or mental actions. We can have linking verbs that connect the subject of a sentence to a subject complement. So we'll have a look at that in a second if you're not quite sure about it. And then we also have helping verbs, like auxiliary verbs, which help out the main verb in a sentence. Okay, so we'll look at these separately anyway, so don't worry if you're not sure about these so far. Okay, so let's begin with the most common, the most obvious type, which are action verbs. Okay, so these are the usual ones that we use in sentences. Okay, all right. So these are the actions that can be seen or heard or felt or experienced. Okay, so she runs every morning. and they laughed loudly at the joke. Okay, so those are like very obvious actions that we can see or hear. Okay, right, but there are also these other types of verbs that we talked about. So we've got the ones here like linking verbs. Okay, so they don't show a specific action, but they still talk about a state or a condition. Okay, so he seems happy. Okay, so he's not actually physically doing an action, but we still feel or we can still experience or sense that he is happy. So seems is a linking verb. Okay, also the cake smells delicious. It's not the cake which is smelling, it's us smelling it. Okay, but this is an example of a linking verb. Okay, another type that we have are helping verbs. Okay. So this is when it is a verb, but it's not the main verb of a sentence. It's just there to help give some context. Okay. So we've got she is singing beautifully. So singing is our main verb and is our helping verb. Okay. So is notifies to us that it is a continuous, present continuous sentence. Okay. And they have been waiting. Okay. Waiting is our main verb. Have been are our auxiliary or helping verbs, and they tell us that it is present, perfect continuous. Okay. All right. So hopefully you can see then how those verbs are helping to create the sentence, even if they're not the main part of it. Okay. So the next thing that we have are transitive and intransitive verbs. Okay, so these can be quite difficult to understand. Okay, but a transitive verb is a verb which needs to have an object that comes with it. Okay, it needs to have a noun in order for it to make sense. Whereas intransitive verbs do not have a direct object that comes with it. Okay, so you've got the example here of she ate the cake. You always need to eat something. Okay, so because you eat something, you need to have an object after it. So that's what makes it transitive. But then we have he laughed. You don't laugh something. Okay, so that is why it is intransitive. You don't laugh an object. Okay, so if there is no object with it, it is considered an intransitive verb. Okay, so we've finished now looking at verbs. Let's now look at prepositions. So prepositions are those teeny tiny little words like under, in, at, on, which describe the relationship between a noun and another verb. And another word. Okay. So as you can see here, the bug is under the table. Okay, so the preposition here is under. Okay, and under tells us the location of the bug in relation to the table. Okay, so I'm sure you can think of many other different examples of this. Okay, all right. So as you can see here, some other examples: in, at, on, of, to, by, for, with, and about. Okay, but there are different types. So there are prepositions of place. So the book is in the box. The cat is sleeping on the rug. So these prepositions tell us where something is in relation to another thing. Prepositions can also talk about time. Okay, so she arrived in the morning. The movie starts on Friday. So in the morning, on Friday, those prepositions tell us the relations to time. The prepositions can also describe a direction, the direction in which someone or something is moving. So she walked to the park. The bird flew from the tree. Okay, so you're talking about the direction of movement here using prepositions. But prepositions can also be used more in a metaphorical sense. Okay, so they don't directly reference the location or time or movement of something, but they help us to make sentences nonetheless. Okay, so I am happy for you. Okay, the car is driven by a computer. The book is about history. Okay, so they still describe the relationship So the book is about history. It tells us about the relationship between the book and about history. Okay, so it tells you that the subject of the book is history. All right. Okay, so we're coming closer to the end here now. So the next word type we're going to have a look at is adverbs. So adverbs describe a verb or an adjective or another adverb. So adverbs kind of tell you how you do something. Okay, so they are very similar to adjectives in that they describe something, but they describe an action rather than describing a noun. Okay, so as you can see in the sentence here, the bird sang beautifully. Okay, so what we're doing there is describing how the bird sang. So it sang beautifully.
Who did you say this is
Okay.
again?
All right, so adverbs are usually those words that end in ly. Okay, so quickly, slowly.
Because that's who actually
Things like that. Okay.
through us.
So
Studied,
let's have a look then. So we can have a look at adverbs of manner. Okay, so they tell us how an action is performed in order to make the sentence more informative, more interesting to read. Okay, so you could be saying something was done swiftly, gracefully, or enthusiastically. They give a lot more description of what is happening in the sentence. Okay, but also adverbs can be used to describe the time of something. Okay, all right, so they are closely connected to those prepositions, but they're also quite different as well.
I think I might.
So we could say that something is done quickly, or you could say something was done yesterday. Okay, so it is still an adverb, even though it doesn't finish in ly. Okay, so something was done yesterday, something is being done now, something will be done soon. These are adverbs of time. Okay, we can also have an adverb of place. It is happening here, it is happening there, it is happening everywhere. It describes the place where the action is happening. Okay. It can also tell us how frequently something is done, whether it is always, occasionally, sometimes done. Okay. All right. They can also describe the degree of something, whether something is done very well, or quite well, or extremely well. So you can see that an adverb also describes another adverb. Okay. So if something is done well, well is an adverb, but you can say something is done very well. So it is two adverbs, very and well. Okay. All right. So as we've learned, adverbs can describe verbs or adjectives or other adverbs. And when they are placed before the verb, adverbs often emphasize the action. So she quickly ran. What we're emphasizing there is the action about her. She was running. But if we say she ran quickly to catch the bus, if you see the word order is different there, the emphasis is on how fast she was doing it. She ran quickly. Okay. So there's a slight difference in meaning there, but in general, it works quite fine. Okay. So we've got just a couple more parts of speech to have a look at. So the next one we're going to look at is interjections. So interjections are words, but they don't really have an important function in a sentence. They just describe an emotion. Okay. So an example here to make this clear is when someone says, wow, I can't believe I won the race. So that kind of wow that we have there is an interjection because it shows your sudden emotion. Okay. So you can also see another example here on the right of ouch. So that shows the emotion of pain there. Okay. So that is an interjection. So the last thing that we have are conjunctions. So conjunctions are those words which connect words or phrases or clauses or sentences. So the example that we got here is, I wanted ice cream, but I had cake instead. Okay. So we've got I wanted ice cream, I had cake instead, but we are connecting them together by using the word but. So we have an easy way to remember these conjunctions. So the way that we can remember them is by using the mnemonic device fanboys. So we've got F for A for and, N for nor, B for but, O for or, Y for yet, and S for so. So you can remember how these connect sentences and connect clauses together. Okay. All right. So that was a quick look at the different parts of speech. So if we just have a look at them one more time. So nouns describe a person, place, thing. A pronoun is those words like he, she, it, which replace a noun if we don't want to say the specific name. A verb is the action. The adjectives are those describing the word. Adverbs are those words similar to adjectives which describe an action. We've got prepositions, those words like in, on, at. Interjection, those words like wow and ouch, and conjunctions, those connecting words like but, etc. Okay, so we're going to have a little practice now. Okay, so in these 10 sentences here, there is an underlined word, and we just need to think about what part of speech those words are. Okay, so does anybody want to tell me what part of speech the first one is? Because we got O. Does anybody want to tell me what that one is?
Yeah, because that's something I thought about. Like, if I'm trying to think in anticipation of OFS coming.
Okay, so for O, we should see that it is an interjection. Okay, it suggests surprise, like, oh, that is a surprise. Number 2, my uncle's car is in the shop, so can your mum pick me up? So should be a
To which we would respond with
junction because it connects the two sentences together.
But then if they ask them, what do you do?
Number 3, the campfire blazed brightly. Brightly is an adverb because it describes how the campfire blazed. Okay, so we can see it as an adverb. Number 4, Theo left his history book on his desk. On here is a preposition because it talks about where it is located. Number 4, we've got a pretty dog was running through the park. So pretty is describing the dog. So that means it is an adjective. Okay. All right. So number 6, she bought a new jacket at the store. So she is a pronoun. Okay. Number 7, the volleyball team won the match. Won is a verb. Okay. Because it tells us about the action which is happening. Okay. So number 7 is a verb. Okay, number 8, my favorite place to visit is the bookstore. Okay, so bookstore is a noun because it describes a place. Okay. All right, number 9, the dog hid behind the girl. Okay, so behind is a preposition because it describes the location of something. And number 10, Jill quickly swam to shore. So this is a verb, swam, because it describes the action which is happening. Okay. All right. So well done there, everybody. All right. So we've come to the end of this session now. But if you would like any extra practice with parts of speech, then I would recommend that you scan the QR code, which is on the screen now, and it will take you to a Google form where you can do a little bit of extra work, a little bit of extra practice with parts of speech. Okay, so that would be a good way for you to practice and to remember what these different parts of speech mean and what kind of function they have. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we will be recording all of our sessions and then uploading them onto there. Okay, but also remember that you don't always have to interact with us via online stuff. You can also come and meet us on campus. So if you look at this poster here on the right, that is me, Kieran, there, and then we've got Christine, my colleague, and we are able to help you with many different things. So it is a free service for you here So we can help you with your presentation skills, your assignment skills, general academic skills like listening and reading, and we can also help you in person, either doing workshops on campus in your classes, and we can also help you online with some online one-to-one sessions as well. So if you ever feel like you need a little bit of extra help or support with your English, then please do get in touch with us. So our email address is there on the screen of EnglishSupport_Manchester WH@esl.ac.uk. All right.